So if you have to create wealth from scratch in India, what are certain things that people should be thinking about?
If you have to generate absurd wealth, generational wealth, right, it's not going to come from a salaried job. Don't be a VC if you enjoy the limelight. Don't be a VC if you want to be celebrated for your success.
Hi everyone, welcome to Salaried Talks powered by Apna Jobs, which is India's leading job search and networking platform. Today's episode is very special as I have with me Pranav Pai, who is founder and partner at 314 Capital. आज के एपिसोड में we are going to discuss about VC as a career option, what is his investment thesis, where does he see startup ecosystem in India moving forward, and what are some of the tips and tricks that he has for somebody who is looking to create wealth. Stay till the end because you're going to get nuggets of wisdom that you will not get anywhere else.
Hi everyone, welcome to Salaried Talks podcast show. This is the unplugged version where I am bringing change makers and people who are working in offbeat roles or people who have embarked on a career journey that very few people have thought of. Today I have with me Pranav Pai, who is the founder and managing partner at 314 Capital, which is India's one of the leading VC firms. And in this discussion, we'll discuss a lot of things. We'll get to understand from Pranav how were things when he was growing up, how is working in a VC role, and what are some of the things that he looks at candidate when he goes about hiring them. So welcome Pranav to the show and thank you so much for taking out time.
Thank you for having me. Great to be here.
Just I wanted to understand in the start about your career journey. You
Mm.
were doing product management in US.
Yep.
Then you launched a VC firm in India. Nobody
Yeah.
could have thought of this career pivot, how this thing
Yeah, I didn't
happened.
either. Yeah, it's a strange story. So I'm born and raised in Bangalore. The few people in tech who are around here today who say that. And in Bangalore, you can't escape technology, right? IT was here,
Right.
BT is here. Of course, all the engineering colleges, all the startup activity also now has moved here. So when I was in school, I come from a family of lawyers and chartered accountants. I was the first kid, even across a generation, to say I want to do engineering.
Okay.
So none of my family could help me, right? They obviously wouldn't give me the advice that they would have normally given someone in the family. So I was given some flexibility to go out there and figure out what engineering looks like. I think my mother especially helped me make a couple of decisions that I think looking back 15 years later, I think were very good decisions. The first decision she helped me make is not write the IIT exam.
Okay.
She told me very clearly, look, everyone is writing the IIT exam. They want to be an engineer. Why don't we go and see one of these IIT coaching centers and you decide if you want to do that because it will take 5 years of your life, right? Back then you started in 8th standard.
Like FitG and all those.
Fiji, we have base and need all these things, base and AS and all that. So and by the way, you have to write an exam to get into the place that will teach you how to write an exam. So it is recursively irritating in my
Right.
mother's language. So she said, okay, let's go see it, right? You should know what you're getting into. Both of us walked in, we took the admission form, we went, he said, we want to see the classroom, we'll just go see. So the classroom has around 120, 130 kids. 95% of them are sleeping. Maybe 7 or 8 kids in the front 2 rows are paying attention, and the professor is teaching the blackboard. He's not even looking back. He's just writing whatever he has to, talking whatever he has to. My mother and I looked at each other and said, "Look, this is not going to work, right?"
Right.
So I think a good decision to allow me to focus on just being a good student. I wrote a lot. I debated when I was in school. I swam. I played sports, and I think that helped me understand not to follow a mainstream kind of logic. Did very well in school. Did very well in 12th, 10th, and 12th. Got into one of the better colleges in Bangalore. And the interesting second decision she helped me make when I was passing out of 12th, I'd got a scholarship to a US university.
Okay.
I'd won a business plan competition, something that gave me a scholarship there. So actually gone after 12th in a summer break. 11th summer break. I'd gone to see a couple of colleges. I went to Harvard. Got to see what university life in the US looks like. It's confusing as a 16, 17-year-old to decide will you leave your parents this young, right?
Hmm.
Will you leave home this young? I got very good advice again from someone my mother asked me to speak to, and he said, "Look, you'll always be able to leave India and go do something else if you want to later. But these 4 or 5 years, you'll never get back with your parents, right?
Right.
It's very important because 18 to 23, I think a lot of how I think today was shaped back then. So I think that was good advice. I settled for the best college I could get into in Bangalore. Good marks, everything obviously, and I think that taught me like the process of being okay with what I want to do and not getting too caught up with other people's decisions. Right? It's okay if other people decide other things, but do this. And that's why throughout my engineering education. In RV, everyone is forced to do a lot of things.
Right.
You have to mug these things. You have to become good in this branch. You have to become good in that elective.
48
Um,
subjects you need to
48
ace.
subjects.
Mhm.
You and I were talking that
Right.
you probably made a good decision not to come to RV because RV is super competitive in some weird ways. But again, I think there I decided very early in RV that RV cannot be the end of my education.
Got it.
I thought this was something that I was not prepared to settle for. RV was important. It was good. I met my wife there. I think that's the best thing that happened to me. Besides, of course, learning what I learned. But in the first year of RV, I decided, okay, I've seen what the best looks like. It's not here. No offense to anyone, but it's in the US still. It still is. And I said, I want to end my education there. I believe the last challenge of my life has to be competing with the best in the world. Right. I was a little angry with, okay, having worked this hard, gone through school. School is very difficult in India. I realized when I was 17, someone told me 2.51 crore kids were born the year I was born. I'm competing, just my batch, my year is
Right.
2.5 crore kids. Add 2 years before, add 2 years after. Yeah, that's almost 10 crore kids,
10
right?
crore, yes.
Yeah, I said, okay, I can't escape competition. I might as well go to the place where the competition's the sharpest, like swim with the sharks, and see if I'm actually good, right? I wanted to test myself. So I wrote all the exams I had to get into a good university in the US. GRE, I maxed the math section. It's a lot of work. You have to make a lot of sacrifice. I thought after college you stop ratifying for exams, but that doesn't seem to end. So I got more angry. But again, I think there was a certain discipline that had come with removing choices and being comfortable with the choice you make and committing to it. Thankfully, got into one of the best universities I wanted to get into. I think Stanford changed a lot of things about how I think. And I think the last decision I made in Stanford was reminding myself I should say no to things that are distractions and focus on what I want to do. So at Stanford, the choice is even wider, right?
Right.
There's no limitation on which course you can take. You can go to business, you can go into biology, you can go to social sciences. You can do a lot of other things outside of your elective. I think at Stanford, I got thankfully pulled in a direction that asked me to challenge myself without competing with people for marks. Right. So Peter Thiel was teaching the course that became the book Zero to One. I
Hmm.
was there in person when he was teaching the course. Facebook went IPO at 100 billion. 100 billion. Zuckerberg is someone our age, right? About
Right.
2-3 years older than us. A kid our age is taking a company public at 100
Sometimes
billion.
it gives me a reality check, but
Yeah,
yeah.
it slaps you in the face and says, you thought you were competing with
Yeah,
the
right.
best. Where are you, right? What is your level? So I think you get pulled in a direction that wakes you up. It gives you a very severe reality check, and that I think that was the final straw that broke and told me I should stop trying to follow the flow, right? Really challenge yourself. I sat for the Google, the Facebook, all the placements, obviously in the US, a lot more interesting jobs. Decided to join a startup, and I think that was the last decision I think that really changed my life because I got to see the craft of building a company. I was employee number 3.
Oh,
I was not
nice.
the founder, but the founder we worked for. This was his third company. He had sold the first two. He had made money. To see a guy his age still wanting to do another startup, still going through this pain, talking to VCs, pitching, getting no, getting no, getting no, getting no. Because if every yes you get like 40, 50 no's, right? Why would this guy put himself through? He's already made enough money. He's
Hmm.
already successful.
Achieved
But
his fire number.
he's achieved his fire number for sure, right? He called us to his house one day. His house is bigger than the whole dormitory block of Stanford. His house is bigger than that. Um, and I got to see, okay, there's a motivation in some kind of people, which makes them good founders, which helps them recruit animals like me because I'm a very competitive guy. I'm fairly good at my job, right? It's hard to hire a guy like me and
Right.
convince me to join anything because I think I know so much and so on when I was that age. But I got to learn from the other side of the table what a good founder really does. I got to learn how they treat investors and what a good investor is, what a bad investor is, right?
Right.
Because investors are genuinely good. They've built companies before. They give you good advice. They get out of your way. They don't micromanage. Some VCs who haven't built a company before, haven't programmed, haven't built a product, they give you very theoretical advice. They want to decide everything you do. They'll tell you this button color is not right. This page should not loading faster. Hey, I mean, after
Hmm.
point, boss, we are the guys building the product. You
It's
relax.
my
You
baby,
you you
so.
come give the money. You look at the business.
Hmm.
This line you don't cross, right?
Right.
You anyone will think that way, right? But I think I got to see for real what it takes to go from zero to a reasonably large company. Right? We got acquired for just under 400 million. I got
Nice.
to see my ESOPs actually hit my bank account. It's a different feeling. I didn't make as much as a founder or the VCs. Obviously, that's a different feeling.
Right.
After the money comes, you say, "I wish, I wish, I wish, I wish I'd taken more. I wish I'd worked for longer." But I think having gone through this all before I was 26, 27, I think I crushed maybe 1.5, 1.6 times the experience into that time period. Right.
Right.
And I think it wouldn't have happened if my mother hadn't taught me to say no quite rigorously and be comfortable with that. So when I came back again, and the decision was always to come back, I didn't want to stay in the US for many reasons.
Was there a year period that you put yourself that maybe 3 years, 5 years, I'll be coming back?
I said by 29 I want to come back. I came back at 27 because the company worked faster.
Right.
We had hit our revenue milestones, our funding milestones, the product milestones.
I think
I
a lot of Indians put this time period, but they never come
They
back.
never
There's
come back. A lot of my best friends are still in the US.
right.
Right? They kept telling themselves they'd come back, but one of them has had his first kid. They have to get married. They're getting to 35, 36 now. So I think putting a very clear limit, saying I will not negotiate with this limit, and only maybe earlier. Thankfully, the company worked faster, and so I was able to come back earlier, saying, okay, my work is more or less done. And I think coming back, I had made the last another interesting choice. I don't want to be a founder. After seeing a good founder do his job, I said that's not for me. Right?
Okay.
I will either work for another founder again and be very good at my job. And I'd seen Nadella and all the other Sundar Pichai. They'd come given lectures at Stanford. They'd spoken quite a bit about how being not a founder but running a company one day. Right? I thought, okay, that's more what I am good for. I don't
Right.
like starting companies necessarily. I had not thought about starting a VC firm, to be honest. But when I came back, and maybe that's another story that I can share. Um, the last year of my fourth year of my education in RV, two companies came to placement that we had never heard of before: Flipkart and Musigma. Right? We didn't know who they were. We had to ask permission to go to the computer lab, remove the shoes, Google what is Flipkart, what is Musigma, because it is for the placement, right? Infosys, Accenture, TCS, everyone has heard of them. So when I came back, I was looking at the startups, whatever, because I was tracking them from the US. Also, Flipkart had become massive, right? Music had become almost 700-800 million in valuation. They raised from SoftBank or someone, and I was saying, okay, something interesting is happening here. The companies I didn't know 5-6 years back, I'm seeing them now becoming quite big, and they have hundreds of people, right, working for them. I said, okay, I think the VC ecosystem also is changing. I had not
Right.
looked there before. Um, I thankfully met some people who knew some VCs and said, look, you should go meet them. Send here's some email addresses, ask for a meeting. I sent maybe 50, 60 emails. I think I got 3 responses. 2 gave me a meeting. And in one of my first meetings with the VC, a very funny story. Um, he said, look, guys like you will want to start a VC firm. By that time, I was experimenting with it. He asked me how much you're raising. I said, okay, sir, I'll try to raise 50 crores because it's hard to raise more. There are not too many LPs in India. He looked at me. He was eating his lunch, right? He gave me a 10-minute meeting. And in Canada, he said, look, son, your fund size is how much fees I earn in a year.
Oh.
Okay, why are you bothering to compete with people like us? Just give me the money. I'll pay you a commission. You go find something else to do. Why you want to compete with VCs, right? So I left that meeting in 10 minutes. I said, okay, boss, something here is definitely an opportunity. If the VCs think like this, that they are, gatekeepers, that no one should compete
Is
with
barrier
them,
to entry so high in
it
starting
is
a
very
VC?
high. It is very difficult. It's barrier to entry in any of these industries is quite tough, right? Especially investing. But we realized a few things, and the guys I was talking to about what we would do, because there were 3, 4 of us who were all interested in working together. We saw that there's actually very few VCs in India. Most of them were global brands: Sequoia, Axel, Lightspeed,
Coming to India,
coming
setting
to
their
India,
India
local
offices.
shops, right? Almost no one was building a homegrown VC firm, right? And even if they were, most of them were in their late 50s, getting to 60, right?
Senior
Um,
executives,
Very
now
senior, yeah.
operators.
And none of them had built product before. They were not technologists.
Right.
Maybe the guy closest to a technology role was a sales guy, one of the VCs. Almost all of them were consultants, so MBB, right?
Right. Right. Right.
So we got to see, okay, there's something wrong here. The kind of VCs we were used to in the US, who had built companies, operators, they've turned VC. There's 2 generations of that happened.
Hmm.
They're more sympathetic. They know how to talk to founders. They actually know how difficult it is to build a product. They can actually debate product market fit with you. Here it was very theoretical.
Hmm.
And a lot of them were very top down in thinking about India, right? They were not going to the road and saying, what are the actual problems? How will you pay? How do you transact? How much will you pay? What is the right price? Everyone was reading a McKinsey report and building a thesis,
Right.
right? And when I met some founders, I realized, okay, their experience with the VC was also very challenging. They were sending out the same emails like they sent 50 emails, maybe 3 will respond, 2 will give you a meeting, both will have a high ego about why it will not work. And unless you are fitting this China में है, US में है, तो India में होगा, right? Like
Hmm.
Alibaba is there, Amazon, therefore Flipkart.
I'm building
DD,
Amazon for India. I'm
DD,
building
Uber,
Airbnb for
correct. This
India.
for X for
Hmm.
that.
हाँ, this is very
And
famous. वो हर
yeah,
tech
this
में मिल
is
जाता
every
है.
founder's problem, and that's why everyone tells you this, right? Um, every founder goes through this, and every VC is saying no for the same reason.
Hmm.
So I said, okay, there's really a monoculture here. The problems we really need to be built to solve for real Indians' problems are not being built by this. These are Americans or outsiders thinking what India needs,
Right.
right? Which is a big problem. So I said, okay, I can go on and on, but a large battery of these experiences convinced us if we are able to raise a little bit of capital, why work underneath the founder, or why work on this side, work on the other side, or work across the table, work with good founders to build great companies, do it differently,
Right.
right? And we said if it works, we'll be able to identify problems before the mainstream.
Right.
We'll be able to identify good people to help us work with us to solve those problems.
Right.
We don't want to take 27%, 30%. We don't have the money to give them that much anyway. So we'll take 10%. That's fine. Today, what every angel investor does, right?
Right.
But we'll be institutional. We'll do it the right way. We'll treat them with respect. We will never say no on email. I mean, we will never not reply to an email. Today, we get 8,000 companies pitching to us every year. So it went from sending 50 emails to receiving
And what's
8,000
the
emails a
team
year.
size right now?
30 people, 9 people on the investment team.
Oh,
With 9 people, we can't meet 8,000 companies.
right.
So we have
True.
to send very well crafted emails of why we're not investing in this space or this market we're not doing right now, right? But we have to be fairly aggressive tat. We have to turn around fast. So till date, we try to make sure every founder comes first. We don't know them, we've not met them. We are respectful that they are trying something. We try to tell them no in as clear a way as possible.
A genuine
It doesn't mean
feedback
it won't
also.
work. It doesn't
Yep.
mean you should not do what you're doing. It means we are not the guys for you, right?
Right.
And if we can be helpful, of course we will be. So it brought a sensitivity to us that till this day we think is our default way of operating. Right? So I can keep going on, but you can see it's not like I want to be a VC and then I'm spending 10 years MBA, MBB. I'm
Hmm.
not, that's not how my path was. It was more about I want to come back here and I think we have to build our own solutions.
Right.
I believe we need to solve our own problems. I believe capital plays a role, but there are other things we need to do. And I believe we need to be a certain type of person. Right?
Right.
Certain types of people are not good for this. But other types of people who've seen it, have been through it, there's a little bit more sensitivity that I think makes them more useful. So
You
that's a quick wrap up of what the path was getting me here.
Do you think in popular culture what they show VC is it true like likes of Silicon Valley or maybe pictures VC is somebody who's very shrewd, very blunt, and if you get a yes from them, then your rags to riches story is out there. आपके इतने पैसे बन जाएंगे कि life sorted है. Just VC needs to come on board.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not surprised why that stereotype has become so mainstream.
Mhm.
But let's take Shark Tank, right? All of them are founders.
Right. Right.
Now some of them are very harsh. I would say for TV, okay, you have to be a little bit dramatic, but
For it to go viral,
for it,
right?
so you have to be a little bit adversarial, right? You have to challenge a little bit. Some of them are very nice,
Hmm.
like they're a little too nice, right? And you can also tell, okay, this guy is being a little bit too nice just for
Hmm.
the sake of TV. So they exaggerate a part of their character to the extreme,
Right.
right? Some of them will want to fund everything, but will say no very nicely. But actually, they're a little bit telling you you're not doing a good job, right? They're a little
Right.
bit like negging you. So if you just look at them as a sample of not VCs, but people who have dealt with VCs enough
Right. Right.
to know how VCs actually treat people, right? Then you can see in them a mirror reflection of what a VC has done to them. All of them have raised VC capital. Some of them are unicorns.
Right.
Um, I can guarantee for all of them, they had bad experiences with VCs. They were not happy how no came. They were not happy that someone kept on talking to them for 3 months and then said no. They wasted 3 months of their time. Every founder has been through this.
Right.
We've been through this also because we raise capital and our LPs also do that. So the whole capital chain, it's not like VCs are bad guys or good guys. The whole capital chain is hard raising money for anyone, right? However
Plus,
hard.
if you're taking anybody else money,
Yeah,
then it
it's
will be
always
tough.
true, right? And not everyone is sensitive to the fact that you're going through 50 times the same experience. No, 50 times or
Hmm.
100 times, right? It's exhausting. I've heard a no for the VC capital that we raised. I probably heard 1,000 no's, right? We've heard 40 yeses.
And how is your
Um,
motivation then always
I'll
up?
come to that,
Hmm.
but the point is, I think you can't stereotype just the VC in the whole chain of capital and say she's the bad person or
Hmm.
he's a good guy, right?
Right.
Both
Right.
is not true. And I think founders who make it, right? If you see Shark Tank US, there are some of them who are actually building companies. They'll be quiet for most of it, and then they'll ask you two questions about the business and quickly yes, no,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
I think the people who have been through the pain and who really have felt it, right? They know not to pass it on.
Right.
So good VCs that I worked with, the best VCs I worked with, are people who have actually built companies. or people who raised money for the VC fund, right? Because they go through no. Or if
Right.
you build company, you've definitely gone through no's. I think those are the best people, and I've been through too many no's. I want to bury that pain behind me, but I can't.
Mhm.
But I think going through that makes you more sensitive. It helps you treat people with respect. I think whether you invest or not, people should not leave the room feeling this was a waste of time or this guy doesn't know what he's saying.
Or
Right? I
maybe
learned something.
demoralized people
I
like that.
learned something.
Yeah,
Right?
right.
Even if he said no,
Mhm.
yeah, I should probably be careful about the point he made. Right? So we hold ourselves accountable to that very clearly, and I think that makes for a better experience for everyone. So definitely, it's not easy. Definitely, I think rags to riches story. I think that is a very it's a very highly aspirational trope.
Right.
Um, I don't think raising a seed round guarantees you any kind of outcome.
Right.
I think the number of failures in seed globally. I think around the data says that 70 to 80% of seed rounds don't make it to big scale. That should tell you doesn't matter if you're smart, not smart, timing. There are so many things you don't control,
Right.
right? And I think even VCs know for sure that um, even if you got a very large seed and then a Series A immediately, if the market turns like it did after 2021,
Right.
actually too much capital coming in is a bad thing. The
Right.
expectations are higher. So, and if you did okay,
Hmm.
you're not going to get a follow-on round,
Right.
right? So at no point of the journey is a funding round a guaranteed outcome
Right.
or an indicator of a guaranteed outcome. It just gives you more time to show that the expectation is now here. You better meet it or else, right?
Or yeah,
So it's very cutthroat, I would say.
perform or perish.
Perform or perish, and I don't think this is for everyone. That's why, and that's why not all companies should be VC backed. I don't think definitely angel investors should be doing just everything under the sun. I think founders should also be careful why I'm raising venture capital, which now people are very open about talking about. So I think there are a lot of lessons here, second and third order consequences that if you just project through last 10 years, I'm glad that India has learned so much.
Right.
We've been through all of this now. It's not like we need to learn more to be good at this. I think now it's just about executing. So
So
it's a good
VC
place
is
to be.
just giving you a reality check of the situation. It's not that they are either too blunt or too demanding. It's just
Yeah.
a reality check.
Yeah, and VCs are also people, right? There are good VCs that are not so
Hmm.
pleasant VCs.
Right.
We've dealt with all of them. Just like there are good founders, there are not so good founders. There are founders doing it for the wrong motivations. So I think what I will tell you is if you're a founder, a VC who's seen so at 314 we've maybe had 45,000 companies pitch to us now. Right?
Okay.
At least we've got 42, 43,000 business plans, decks, whatever. We've said no to a lot of them. We've said no to most of them. We've invested maybe 85, 90 of them. Now, even in the ones we've invested, some of them we've been wrong,
Right.
right? Either the people were a disappointment, or the market was not what we
Ready
thought it
for it.
was,
Yeah.
or timing was horrible, or they didn't hit product market fit. So you can identify the cause for failure, but in all of those failures, we've asked ourselves, was there something we should have looked at when we funded them? Turns out we looked at everything we could. This you
Right.
could not have predicted, right? There's no way to insulate against this.
Right.
And the contra is also true. If you look at our successes, we have 4 unicorns. We finished our first IPO. We have at least 6 companies becoming unicorns. They call Soonicorns. I think that someone keeps making the report. So assume the top 10, 15 are reasonably successful. We could not have looked at any one of them and say, oh, they're going to be unicorn for sure. There's no way, right?
Right.
Our biggest company today is Licious, which is a D2C brand in the animal protein space. There were 2 guys on a laptop when they came to us. Vivek, actually one of the co-founders, is a VC himself. And if
Okay.
you call him, he'll tell you the story. He knew all the VCs, and he went to all of them just like I. When I didn't know all the VCs, but I asked for meetings. At least he got the meetings. They
Hmm.
didn't even give me any meetings because I'm nobody at that time, right? But all of them in the first 30 minutes, no. Vivek, why are you doing meat, right? Do something in food delivery. Do something else. Why are you doing meat,
Do
right?
the flavor of the season thing.
Because Swiggy, everything is getting funded. Do food delivery,
Hmm.
or do something ride hailing, or
Hmm.
do something in e-commerce. Sell clothes, sell makeup, something.
Hmm.
Why you want to do something so painful, right?
Right.
And some VCs told him, Vivek, only 10-20% of India eats meat. How
Hmm.
how big a market is it?
Hmm.
Where's the problem?
Tam is missing.
Yeah, TAM is there. TAM is not there. And Vivek actually went with data, right? 78% of India consumes meat weekly.
No. And
$40 billion of meat consumed every year. It's a massive market.
right.
And there is no one organizing meat, if you think about it.
Mostly unorganized.
It's all unorganized, right? Right outside here, we saw the butcher. We were
Yeah.
talking about it. So if you think about the experience from the consumer's point of view, everyone is looking for a solution,
Hmm.
but VCs are somehow not in the solution space, right? They're so
Right.
far away. Some of them don't even believe there's a need for a solution. So if you ask founders like that, and why do we do the first round? Because we actually go in there and look at the problems. Right?
Right.
We've talked to customers, we've seen where the consumer white spaces are, and this is one of the spaces we said you can actually build a category creator.
Hmm.
right?
Right.
Nothing exists before you,
Right.
and it's very hard to compete with you if you do it a certain way.
Right.
To do it full stack, don't just buy from here and deliver like Swiggy. Don't go to a butcher and deliver to your house. Go all the way to the supply chain start, right? Go to the farm,
Hmm.
right? And integrate and process from the start, which is what they've done. Today, they're 1,000 crores in annual revenue. They'll be profitable very soon. Category creator, market leader. I think that's an example of how in India, and this is why I love investing here. You can still build category creators. You
Right.
can solve real problems, right? You don't need to go into Web3 and crypto and all these make believe versions of make believe problems that maybe one day you actually have a use case. You can solve real problems today, and you can build IPOable companies doing that. Right? That's what makes us excited. I think founders we worked with who have done that well, us and them, there's a humility that comes from this is going to be really difficult. There's a shared sense of okay, there's going to be a lot of pain. We go through it,
Right.
right? But in the end, there's a attitude of we can't give up. It's going to be difficult, but it's going to be worth it. So don't give up. So I think you need the VC to have that sensitivity, and that's my belief. And that's why we try to build 314 a little bit differently.
Got it. You talked about a lot of rejection. So how you cope up with rejection? What is your coping mechanism?
Yeah, I
Friends, family, or some
will.
hobby that you take up
um,
or pursue?
I think that two things that give me that motivation. So as a student, I realized there's a lot of pain in the generations that came before me. My father's father, my grandfather, was orphaned when he was very young. He ran away from home. He went to Bombay. He used to clean the table in Kamath Hotel, one of the Udupi hotels. Sleep under the table, one meal a day. Um, he got married by force because his uncle decided you come back, you get married, you have to get married now. I promised your father. His wife, my grandmother, was a school teacher,
Hmm.
right? And that generation after independence, who were born, who were 10, 20 years after independence getting married, this country stole all hope from them. There was nothing. It was
Right.
scarcity, right?
Hmm.
I don't think enough of us know how bad it was. And I, unfortunately passed away when I was 5. So I didn't get to ask him too many questions, but I do remember very clearly him telling me how happy he is that he could put my father, his son, in school. I'm a child.
Hmm.
Okay, I can't even talk full sentences.
Right.
But he's telling me how happy he is your father went to school.
I think.
He's a CA today, right?
Right.
And he used to tell me that he couldn't study. And he would talk to me about the fish market, about buying vegetables. Like he would just give me stories, and for not too long. And even as a kid, you can say, "Oh, this doesn't sound right." Like something bad happened to that generation, and I think it happened to almost everyone in India.
Right.
And I think when my parents were in their 20s, they were getting educated. My grandfather's generation didn't know how to feed themselves tomorrow. They didn't have money. Uh, I remember when my parents got married. So they were it was not an arranged marriage. They found each other in college. Um, my father's a CA. He's a rank holder. His CA job paid him 150 rupees a month. Right now, you can't support a family on 150 rupees a month,
Right.
especially if your father's died. You have to support the elderly as well. I remember when my parents had my brother. I was 5, 6. It was around the time my grandfather died. My mother was saying she will give up her job. They were actually talking about, okay, will we have enough money to support 2 kids, right?
Right.
Um, so there's a lot of pain, and I think it's not an isolated story of pain. I think anyone here in this room goes back, you will see that there was a system of governance in place, this socialism mindset that robbed from us,
Right.
right? Um, when I was in school, whatever I could do, however good a student I was, I knew I was being given the space to study and do so well because my parents took a lot of pain and made sure they could pay my fees, whatever, right? And of course, my father's career with Infosys, it's a generational rise up, right? Very few people go through that. So he wasn't around too much. He couldn't give us his time. Of course, that's why the financial security came because he worked that hard. Most kids who go through that don't know the pain behind it. They see only the success.
Right.
I think our parents didn't hide too much from us. Seth and I both got to see that it was such a soul crushing challenge, and it brought in us a sensitivity that never again, right? Never again.
Right.
If I'm ever in a situation where I have to go tell my parents, I don't know how to feed you next month, no. I've thought through what that pain does to me. No, never again. So everything I've done since school, the motivation comes from acknowledging the sacrifice 2 generations have made before me. My father wanted to be a physicist. He wanted to go to ISC and study physics. There's no way they could afford that, right?
Right.
They barely could afford a CA. So when it came to me making a decision engineering, right, I had to check myself. Will I be a very good engineer and be successful? Right? Do I know what that looks like?
Right.
Right? I didn't know about what a founder is, what a startup is, what venture funding is. In school, there was nothing. But it got me to start asking questions of the future so that I can prepare today. Right? So that motivation comes from knowing the past and saying, I'm not just going to leave it to chance. I have to work backwards from a future, which safety net, draw a line. Below this, never again. Right?
Mhm.
Second, because that train of thought is there early, and now all of us are seeing this because of social media. When I was in school, when I was in college, I just joined RV the first year. Kasab came 2611, shot up Bombay. Thankfully, I didn't have family in Bombay, but in RV, there are people who had
Mhm.
relatives who were around Oberoi Hotel, whatever, Taj Hotel. What did our government do? They did nothing.
Right.
No retaliation, no strike. This Prime Minister Balakot, we've drawn lines now, right?
Right.
But imagine you're 17, 18, you're in college, you're angry all the time, you're anti-authoritarianism. Everyone has that feeling, right? You're
Mhm.
young, the testosterone is high. But Aman Ki Asha is the program that Times of India launches with some newspaper in Pakistan. And our response to someone coming and shooting our financial center is Aman Ki Asha. Oh, let
Right.
us hope for peace. We should not retaliate. We should be bye, ban. No, that second thing that I saw, I still remember that memory quite vividly. I said something is wrong here, boss. This cannot be the kind of country for us,
Right.
right? This is not the right system. And I think that event started getting me to ask questions about, are we being fed some programming that is not good for us, right? We don't protect our borders. We don't retaliate when people cross the line. Um, Scam after scam after scam after scam, right? And I was left with the conclusion, and that the internet wasn't everywhere in our pockets like it is today. But if you start googling what is socialism, what is this, what is that, you get to see, okay, this whole system is nonsensical. It doesn't
Right.
work. We have to have enough agency to earn for ourselves, pay the tax. But after what I do after with my money after my tax, I should not
It's
be
my
asked questions.
prerogative.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. I want to be successful. I have to have that motivation. But there's a line you have to draw after which you can't ask me questions,
Right.
right? So that's an important series of lessons you go through that young. But I don't want kids to go through all that, like the pain in the macro, and then ask those questions. We should
Right.
be taught to ask those questions, right? And
Right.
we were never taught to ask those questions. So I think that's a second very vivid event in my head. This Aman Ki Asha nonsense, and then Rang De Basanti. If you've seen that movie,
Right.
again, college kids, whatever, Amir Khan, okay, sure. But then what do? They go hijack a radio station of all things. Nonsense,
Right.
right? If everyone hijacked a radio station when they were in college, what will work in this country, right? So the nonsense we're being fed, it's to keep us confused and without motivation,
Right.
right? Back then. And I think that's why I'm not surprised. So many of our best people used to leave the country, right?
Right.
All of us who went to Stanford, Harvard, whatever, we're the best in our class. We competed with 25 million babies and we're in the top 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, whatever, right? In top N. Um, I'm not surprised they all leave and don't want to come back if that's the motivation in the environment around you,
Right.
right?
Right.
So to answer the question now, sorry, it went a little bit long,
Mhm.
but the things that are given to us as signals to build our motivation on were wrong.
Right.
I think I learned to question all that. And then, therefore, the motivations are never again, and a little bit of anger against the system. Right?
Right.
I disagree.
Right.
I don't buy the logic. Right? I don't buy this philosophy, and I will do it differently.
Right.
Right? And I think that's a certain anti-authoritarianism that, if it's channeled well, that's why we start a VC firm. Right? A
Right.
little bit of a, okay, we'll show you. Right?
Right.
When it's not ego, it's more, I'll let me try. I'll try to make it work, and when it works, now I'm not going to fail.
Right.
Right? And therefore, I learned the third thing, which is, if you look at athletes, the best athletes in the world, um, again, when when I was in school and college, we lost too many World Cups, but thankfully 2011 we won.
Right.
And the guys who won it for us, the Kohli, Dhoni, Yuvraj, they were young, they were hungry. You could tell they were not from Bombay, Bangalore, very safe environments.
Right.
Like Rahul Dravid was my hero before Dhoni won the World Cup. Okay, because he's from my school in Bangalore. Dravid studied in the same school as me. Um, Dravid was a wall, a rock, right?
Consistency always. Yeah.
Like reliable,
Right.
but it's incomplete. You
Right.
need a Dhoni to come and
Hmm.
say, forget it, I'll helicopter shot, right?
Right.
And take that extra run, push sled the batsman from the back. Why should only Australians sledge
Hmm.
us, right? Why aren't we sledging them back? We know how to
Right.
speak English,
Right.
right? Screw the accent. We'll make fun of them,
Hmm.
right? He's a guy who changed that attitude. And a
Hmm.
lot of us in that generation saw that and said, correct. About time someone did this.
Right.
Right? We're too good. We're too nice guys. All the
Right.
time we're nice guys. Nice guys don't win.
Mhm.
In sport, doesn't matter to be nice. In sport, you have to win. That's all that
You
matters.
need to be
Very
competitive.
unidimensional.
Right.
Right? The best football players, if they don't win the golden ball, they're angry. They score
Right.
30 goals, but they didn't get the golden ball.
You
Right?
might have seen memes of Mbappe after
Yeah.
football
Of
World
course,
Cup.
Mbappe, right?
Hmm.
He was possessed
Hmm.
in the. I was there in the final. That man was possessed.
Right.
I was scared looking at this guy scoring the third goal. Holy shit! I've never seen this before. I'm sitting there live, and this guy's outplaying Messi.
Right.
Okay, and of course he'd won the last World Cup. He was a much younger kid, but I'm now scared for the guys who come up against him in the next World Cup.
Right.
And that's the kind of guy I look at and say there's a certain athleticism that motivates them beyond the ordinary,
Right.
right? And so for when I look back at my career, and for a lot of us in 314, we think like intellectual athletes. And there are a lot of subtle clues under that statement. Maybe the most important thing is we can't do this forever.
Right.
We look at VCs who are 64, 65. They're raising their next fund. They'll be 75 and they have to exit the fund they're raising.
Right.
Boss at 75, look at Biden, he's 80.
Hmm.
You'll start struggling to even say coherent sentences,
Right.
right? How will you compete against animals like me in exiting companies, getting a better deal, building a unicorn? It's going to be very difficult. You have to have some sense of self awareness.
Have you also
Right?
thought of a retirement age for
That's what I'm
you?
saying. So that's why I say if you think like an intellectual athlete, you realize you can't work at this intensity after an age.
Like in cricket, after 35,
Just like
36,
correct
you
F1 drivers 32,
Hmm.
right? Golfers 39, 40, swimmers 26, 27, right?
Right.
The more intense a sport, the more brutal the end period,
Right.
right?
Right.
And early stage, I think, is amongst the hardest things to do.
Right.
It really crushes you every day. It's so risky, right? Founders will escape the early stage. They go growth stage, mid stage, IPO.
Hmm.
We are stuck doing early stage deals for the rest of
Right.
our life. That's what we do. We're early stage investors, right?
Right.
Even if our best companies graduate, we are stuck here building the next, trying to build the next company, right? Which is soul crushing every day. So I think if you think like an intellectual athlete, we realize this cannot last forever. We
Right.
cannot work like this. And so at least Siddharth and I, when we started 314, we said after this age we can't do it. So it built an urgency in us to say we have to add new partners. We have to grow leaders from within. We have to talk to our investors, not like we're building something for 80 years, right? But 25 years, boss, will do damn good. After this, even we can't do it.
Is 50 the age number that you have put for
It's
yourself?
lower. It's lower now because you see more gray hair.
Even I
The
color my beard, so
Yeah,
fine.
I don't color it yet, but I shave it off because there's too much gray hair, man.
Right.
I don't like seeing that much gray. I'm not even 35. But yeah, it brings a certain sense of reality. It's brutal, but it gives you a sense of self-awareness that says it'll last only for this long. Do your best. And there's an anger that comes in reaction to that,
Right.
right? Why should it last only this long? How is that fair?
Right.
But that's reality. You can't negotiate with reality.
Right.
Reality will always win. So it brings a sense of, I would say, collectedness, resignation to the fact that reality works this way, and therefore your life becomes a little bit more disciplined. You learn not to get agitated by other people's success.
Right.
You learn not to get bullied by some bad people and their failures. And you learn to really, when you have something good, make the most of it. Right. And I think those are skills you can deploy in any job.
Right.
But I think all that in venture makes us a little bit better at the job.
Yeah, I read about this concept called time billionaire. If today
Yeah.
somebody will give you option to swap your life with a Warren Buffett,
Yeah.
you would not do it
No
because
way
you
in hell.
hardly have 3-4 years left,
No way.
even though if you get that money.
No way.
So
I
you
agree.
have time at your hand. It's up to you how to use it.
I agree.
So how it's easy for you to comprehend the other person who is pitching to you, because I think with so many pitches now you would be easily able to identify that this person is in for money or this person is here to solve a problem. They have very high intent.
Yeah. That's a good question. So look, how much ever investors say when they're sitting on this side of the table that no, I'm judging everything on merit,
Hmm.
market, then product, then market margin, whatever. They'll create some big explanation for how they judge companies. I think that at the heart of it, if you don't see you working with this guy or this girl for 10 years, right? If you don't see him or her being able to recruit a better person as CFO or
Hmm.
CTO or CPO, whatever, right?
Right.
Because you mean one day go to chairman, hire a CEO, because
Hmm.
you can't be CEO forever, most
Right.
likely, right? Very few people are. Um, you start judging these people under those lenses, and most people don't know they're being judged that way. Most people in the early stage, and how will they? Because it's hard to think of so many things at once. Don't know that they're even being held account to something that is very cruel when it works.
Right.
It's not that you're judging the cause for failure. You're judging something, how they'll react when it actually succeeds,
Right.
right? Um, First of all, building something that succeeds is the hard part, but judging them for how they'll behave then also is a
Hmm.
very weird derivative, right?
Hmm.
But those are the extents to which the people judgment goes, right?
Right.
So we've seen all this. We know all this. So what we do is we try to tone it down into there are only certain sets of markets we work in, right? So for example, I use this example quite openly, but we will not invest. Unlikely, we will invest in a company in the dating space for many reasons, right? There are a lot of dating companies that have worked with big apps, big businesses, but not for us for many reasons. Um, Therefore, even if a really good founder comes to us, but they're building in this space, we'll say, fantastic, we hope it works, but not for us, right?
Sorry.
So it brings a little bit of a discipline to,
Hmm.
therefore, even the number of people we will talk to or entertain. Second is in certain markets, you need to have a founder who knows the market well, right? So, for example, if you're building in the specialty chemical space,
Hmm.
if you haven't worked in specialty chemicals development, you don't know the R&D workflows, you don't know how the customer thinks about purity. If you haven't done payment management in the working capital cycles, there are too many surprises in that industry to learn from like a general guy, like a consultant going into it,
Right.
right? It helps if you've actually worked in SRF or one of these big companies and then come to build a company, a better version of it, right? So we can judge people for their preparedness in the business without making a personal judgment on them,
Right.
right? It's fine if you don't know spec chem, but we'll try to look for someone else who knows this industry better, right? Simple explanation. So we can go on and say we can eliminate a lot of different characteristics of people before making personal judgments on them,
Okay.
right? That's what we try to do, because otherwise you're just judging people harshly for no reason, which is I think unfair. But the personal judgment is, can we work with you for 10 years, right? Will you learn?
Right.
You'll be wrong. You will be wrong, just like we will be wrong, right? But when you're wrong, will you accept whatever the argument that is right and do what is best for the company?
Right.
So there are a few ways we test this. When it's getting to we want to do the deal, but we try to eliminate a lot of the other things on market, on product, on people, other things that we can ask.
So basically, the founder and their persona will can take a backseat if everything else is in place. Yeah.
Good. Actually, we'll ask it a different way. If we reach a situation where you don't want to be CEO anymore, are you
Uh,
the kind of person that makes room for a
Right.
CEO,
Got it.
right? Or makes room for better people in general?
Got
I
it.
think the smartest founders always say yes, because even they are like intellectual athletes. They realize, boss, I can't manage 1,000 people or 5,000 people or 10,000 people. I don't want to be that kind of person.
Right.
I'll hire a CEO who's better at taking this company public if that is what is required.
Right.
Right? Some founders now, especially the second time founders, come to us and say, boss, I'm only going to be CEO till Series B. After that, we all have to find someone else to be CEO.
Okay. So
I'll be on the
they
board,
are transparent in the starting
because they've
itself.
realized they don't see what is a, let's take Zuckerberg, right? Dorm room story. Everyone's seen the movie. A lot of exaggeration in the movie also, but fine. Today, Facebook has, I think, 160,000 people, 160,000 people,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
If he isn't the kind of person who enjoys managing the HR workload of 160,000 people, he will not be CEO,
Right.
right? Sergey Brin and the Google founders, basically, they left the CEO position to Eric Schmidt. He came from some other company.
Hmm.
It's a great example of how even founders say, "Boss, my time has come.
Right.
Right? This running a big company is not for me. It put me in the technology department, put me in the science department, research department, whatever. I'll do my work there. Right? Give me a budget, whatever. Okay." So I don't think there's any shame in that. But people who know that that is not for me, that is an important realization,
Right.
right? And I think a lot of these guys have been through it now. They're starting a second company, third company, which is very good for the ecosystem. I think there's a more narrow focus, like I've said before, that makes for a better conversation.
Got it. Got it. I think a lot of viewers who are watching this would also like some tips from you on how to generate wealth or become wealthy, because
Sure.
a lot of these are salaried professionals
Yeah.
and you have to slog till 55, 60 to get to your retirement
Yeah.
corpus, start with a mutual fund, then you
Right.
watch all of these videos that you'll have 1 CR at age of 60, but that
Right.
will not give you time freedom. So if you
Yeah.
have to create wealth from scratch in India, what are certain things that people should be thinking about doing?
Yeah. So, um, our parents' generation did not think about getting wealthy to those levels as reasonable ambitions.
I think government job was top ambition.
Correct. Right. And my father was weird because he did CA and then decided to join an IT company. People couldn't even explain what IT is.
Right.
Okay. When I went to school, When my teacher asked, "What does your father do?" I said, "IT." After that, "What is IT?" Madam, I don't know.
Hmm.
Okay.
Right.
So today, if you have to generate absurd wealth, generational wealth, right, it's not going to come from a salaried job.
Right.
So the first question you have to ask, if say you're 25 and you just in the middle of your first job, you're thinking about your career now, right? Um, you have to ask yourself really hard, how much money do I actually want to make? Most people don't know what to do with $1 billion.
Right.
And I'll give you a very simple example. As a VC, I will never be a billionaire. I already know.
Okay.
However good my funds are, if I do 20 years of this, I'll never be a billionaire.
You
I
have
know
done
how
that
much I'm going to make.
calculation.
Of course, I know the
Mhm.
calculation,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Because in every fund, it's structured with fees, carry, hurdles.
Mhm.
All the math is known. You set a reasonable, say 100 rupees becomes 400 rupees, 4x fund is reasonable, right?
Right.
It's a good fund. So far, we've always done 5x, 6x, 7x, but 4x, okay.
Mhm.
Assume the outperformance doesn't last forever. Project for 20 years, right? How many funds we'll do, etc., etc. The math is not difficult.
Right.
We have to do all this before we start a VC firm. So,
Right.
because we have
True.
to make our own personal calculation. Will this work for me, right? Um, I'll never be a billionaire, was the answer. And thankfully, because of all the elimination and so on, I know for sure I don't want to be one. There's too much baggage with that label, and I don't need the money. If all I did was I want to buy a yacht, I want to buy some Air Jordan, whatever, then I know I need money for things that I don't need. I want, right?
Right.
I'm not that kind of guy, right? So I learned very quickly these Forbes aspirations are nonsense. It always leads to more trouble. So be very brutal about how much money do you actually need, right? My number is actually not that difficult to reach in my industry or many industries.
Okay.
That's number two. Therefore, once you reach a level, say your number is 10 crores, right? You can make 10 crores in almost any industry in India today.
Okay.
Because if you become the best CFO or the best say COO
Hmm.
or the best CTO, right? Let's say tech, right? Or even the best growth hacker. There's so many new jobs now,
Any C
right?
level executive job.
Any C level, they're getting paid 2, 3, 4 crores a year now for a
Right.
reasonably large company, right?
Right.
So 10 crores is nothing,
Doable.
very doable,
Hmm.
right? So suddenly, you'll realize actually I don't need to think that far and start a company, be a founder, be a VC, whatever, all these absurd Forbes aspirations. Just taking today's skills to the terminal competency in 10 years, right, gets me beyond 10 crores.
Right.
So therefore the third level is okay, I have to work damn hard now when I'm 25. My neurons are still dense, my hormones are still working. Maybe I'm a little overweight, maybe I don't do enough exercise. I have to also make myself the kind of person who's the most disciplined athlete to be that level in 10 years.
Right.
By the time I'm 35, I'm CTO material. Because guess what's happening in India? Now people in their 40s are taking companies IPO.
Right.
In 10 years, people in their 30s will be taking companies IPO. Inevitable. In 20 years, we'll see a Zuckerberg type fellow coming in 20s, late 20s, early 30s IPO.
I think Zepto guys.
Maybe,
22. Yeah.
yes. I hope they'll change that. Right?
Mhm.
Smart guys. So we can see now the like let's say the macro mindset of what is an acceptable IPO also, what is an acceptable age for a certain position, title, whatever. All of it is being crushed,
Right.
right? Which is very good. It's being compressed. So you have to start working not on today's logic, but in 10 years, what is going to be,
Right.
and build yourself to be that kind of person, right? So if you don't want to be a founder, like I didn't want to be a founder, I would have probably said when I'm 25, okay, I'm was VC now say that was not an option. I want to be the best product guy in India, right? So I actually had that in my head. So I studied all the apps. ClearTrip was maybe the best designed app when I was that age, right? The product guy, the CTO, I stalked all of them. I saw what they did, and I started training myself. And thankfully, YouTube, the best people are coming on YouTube, starting to make videos, right?
Right.
So I didn't need to go and enroll in some ISB or whatever. I could just go to YouTube. Today, everyone can go to YouTube.
Right.
Right? This is on YouTube. So I think now you'll see there are more tools. The fourth thing is more tools around you that you don't need to spend money to become that good,
Hmm.
and you can do this outside the job,
Right.
right? So very importantly, carve out a certain number of hours, and you'll realize it's exactly what an athlete does. A fixed number of hours a day. You train.
Practicing.
You train. You take care of yourself. You train,
Hmm.
right? Just like that, you train in the morning, do your job, earn the money, spend some time with family, train in the evening, right? In 10 years, nothing can stop you.
Got
No
it.
one is doing this today.
Yeah, I saw a news interview of Benny Bansal. He told
Yep.
that initial first 10 million covered everything that I wanted to
Correct.
do in life. Maybe I had a great bungalow,
Sure.
maybe a yacht, and every a fancy car. But after 10 million, everything was normal for me.
Yeah.
So,
If so, I know Benny reasonably. If you ask him, if you probe beyond that answer, he'll say, "I don't need a fancy car.
right,
That house I bought, I don't need to live in it." He's
right,
not living in it, by the way.
right,
The house he bought in Koramala. So you'll reach, you already, if you're honest with yourself, you don't need 10 million. That's 80 crores. It's a
right,
lot of money.
right,
Okay. I'm not saying today if I give this guy 80 crores, he will not take it. Of course he'll take it. Anyone will take it. Right.
right,
But you don't need that much.
right,
So be very brutal about the need. If you get in this line of thinking, right, you will realize for sure. Everyone I've spoken to has realized this is not where I'm going to end.
right.
I will hit the 10 crore mark by the time before I'm 40.
Hmm.
Right. If you're 25 now. Therefore, let me start figuring out what I will do with the extra money. And
Right,
this is where things get really interesting. Okay, I will give scholarships to kids who struggled like I did.
right.
Okay, which is what we are doing now in our family. Um, I will restore some temple of mine, my family's temple. I will restore some house in my grandfather's name. Right.
Maslow hierarchy of needs comes into play.
Suddenly rectifying the pain of the past.
Right,
Okay, preventing other people from going through that pain.
right,
Right. Some people want to donate to a political party, save the constituency, train some IAS students,
right,
certain way. You start seeing that they want to give the money away
right.
more
True.
than buying a yacht and a house and another yacht, another. Who cares? You don't need that shit, right?
Right,
So that's what I'm trying to say. After a point, when you reach that kind of thinking, right, the weight of money goes away,
right,
and suddenly, if you're really an intellectual athlete, you will treat money like a means to an end.
right,
Money is not the end. Money is the means to an end,
right,
and it makes you respect money less. And I'm telling you, you need to respect. Today, we have too much respect for money. Like it is the aspiration.
right,
But if you move money down, it's a step towards your real aspiration, right?
right,
Then you respect it less, and
right,
suddenly it's not as intimidating as it is today,
right,
right? And I think that mental shift is what in the US they do very well. Like the money is not. I know in the movies everything is money, 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 but money is a means to something else, a better life, independence, American dream, whatever, right? After point, sure, but losing respect for money is the important thing. I think that gives you a little bit more articulation to deal with money as a utility, as a tool, not as you don't have too much respect for your car. Okay, you like your car, you'll clean it, whatever, you're proud of it. But after a
right,
point, in 5 years, you know you'll replace it, right?
right.
That's how you should treat money. Like it's not okay. It's a nice thing to have, yeah, sure, and of course you need it, certain things. After a point, don't make it the object of your life.
Got it.
That is very important.
I think initially you told about Hindi movies, and also basically that I think comes from movies. Also, you see
Yeah,
somebody getting a money, their life transforming like anything, coming into choppers and then fancy cars that
yeah,
people
yeah,
get motivated. Talking about your growing up years, you were surrounded by highly intellectual folks who
mm,
basically drove IT revolution in
yeah,
India.
true.
So was it a pressure situation for you, or how was it like? Was it a learning experience seeing so many moving pieces of puzzle?
Yeah. So I didn't understand what IT was till I got into the 12th standard exam for the RV college, Comet K, all that stuff, right?
Comment ki, yeah.
Because in Comet, everyone wants to get into RV because of placement
Right,
or BMS or whatever.
right,
What is placement? What is who's coming? That's when you start asking questions, right?
right,
And I think the interesting thing here is, thankfully in Bangalore, we were seeing the companies who everyone aspired to get jobs in
right.
actually being built in this city,
Yes.
right? And thankfully, I was in proximity to one of those companies. Um, when I saw Mr. Murthy, Mr. Nilikani, Mr. Gopal Krishnan, etc., all of them, the founders of Infosys, we'd go meet them once a quarter because they had some event that they would call on the board and so on. If you've been to the campus, fantastic campus, one of the
Yes.
best campuses in the world. What these guys did is they raised the standard of what it means to work in a company so high, above
Right.
and beyond anything India has seen before.
Right.
Right? They built the largest university in India is built by Infosys, the Mysore campus.
Right.
It I think it can train 45,000
Hmm.
people every year, and it's a beautiful campus. It looks like it's almost as good as Stanford, right? Massive. And I think you we got to see literally these people setting aspirations and earning their own profits to fuel the aspirations. No
Right.
raising money, no waiting for TPG, some growth guy to come give you money. From the start, they didn't raise any venture capital. The only equity they raised was in the IPO when they filed in '93, and you got to see in real time all the principles everyone talks of as ideal theory. These guys are doing in reality,
Right.
right? And they were quite meritocratic. The founders, there was a clean passing between them. very clean board, governance, etc. So I was learning concepts that you are usually in a textbook, and the ideal state is always told you in a textbook. You are seeing the ideal state in reality,
Right.
right? Of course, there were some mistakes,
Right.
and of course there are challenges, and the industry has become bigger, more competitive, etc. But what they did, I think, it's hard to replicate in any industry anywhere in India.
Do you think it can be replicated today?
I think it can be,
It
but
can.
it's very hard to,
Hmm.
right? So I'll give you simple examples. I think if you take Infosys peak market cap 100 billion,
Right.
Reliance is 200, 220, HDFC is 150, 160 at the peak. Um, we are now creating $100 billion companies, but it took 35, 40 years,
Right.
right? Some of them are older.
Right.
I think now we are creating unicorns in 7 years on average,
Hmm.
right? We are struggling at the 20 billion mark. Paytm, Baiju, right?
Tanking.
We are trying to get too big in a time frame that India does not support as of today, and we are
Right.
seeing the pain of going down.
Right.
Right? Very, very painful to see a 20 billion company go down. I mean, it shouldn't have happened really. But if we say, look, the 100 billion was done in 35 years, the next generation of 100 billion should be done in say 20 years,
Hmm.
right? And therefore, the pressure on these investors and the founders to do it in 8 years, 9 years, 10 years, 12 years, we have to let go of that pressure and say we have 20 years, boss.
Hmm.
Okay, 100 billion is a lot of money, right?
Right. Right.
Especially in India, because the PPP you multiply by three and so on. 20 years, 100 billion. Anyone today in this room takes that outcome. You devote 20 years of your life to it, right? But these guys are in a hurry for other reasons,
Right.
and everyone has a different motivation, whatever, right? So I think, in my opinion, we are set up for 100 billion outcomes, but not 35. Too much. It's too much of your life. I think 20 reasonable, right? I think guys like Zepto and so on will set a new trend,
Right.
right? But for us millennials, 20 we should deliver,
Right.
right? And I think there are now I am seeing founders who are saying, I'll be more patient, I'll hire good people, I will not grow 200% a year, I'll grow 80% a year, but I'll grow 80% for sure
Right.
over the next 10 years, right? I'll compound in ways that are predictable. I don't want to burn out my people. I want to pay my people well. I'll give them ESOP. I don't want to overcommit to the market and then let them down next quarter because it'll crush me. This
Hmm.
market is very punishing if you don't keep your word.
Right.
Very rewarding if you keep your word. It's a really discerning market today, the public markets,
Right.
right? And the transition from private to public is like coming out of your mother's canal, birth canal, man. I'm telling you,
Right.
it is such a vivid experience that it changes how you think forever,
Right.
right? So I think more companies going public and more founders sharing that story with companies who are still private and saying, "Boss, slow down.
Slow down. Right.
Your word is more important than some 2% extra growth."
Right.
Okay, the people around you are more important than you can't keep replacing them forever. You
Right.
need your CFO to stick with you for 10 years.
Right.
Okay, because he will take the continuity of the company forward, and that compounding really matters.
Right.
So I think those are things that we are now passing down slowly. There's a big gap between the Infosys and the Flipkart, Baiju, Paytm. They didn't talk.
Right.
They should have spoken. They really should have spoken.
Right.
They would have learned a lot of things.
Right.
There's a big gap.
Right.
I hope they come to the next generation now. I hope more people talk. We are trying. We're getting them to talk to each other. But the guys who went at 20 and failed, I think we should all learn and say, boss, slowly, more steadily. The compounding is worth it. Give it time.
Right.
Let's make it happen. Right? So I think that's what is going through right now.
Right.
I think the conversation is going to change for a much better, more deterministic set of outcomes going forward.
But I think Pranav, इसमें lot depends on people also ना मतलब in next 20 years your motive or intentions might be changing
Yeah,
or maybe so everybody needs to be aligned and in Infosys case everybody was aligned since beginning and they stayed till the end.
not
So
true.
okay.
Not true, right? So I'll see. It's easy to say that now because in 35 years they delivered, but
Right.
every year there was a doubt.
Okay.
Okay, see, I'll tell you a simple example. 90%, 95% of their revenue comes from outside India.
Right.
Okay, think about it. Oil companies in India, ONGC, blah blah, all these guys. Their money doesn't come from selling oil in Thailand or Africa. It comes from selling oil in India, right?
Right.
Reliance Retail sells stuff in India, right? IT is the only industry we have where all the people are here, domiciled here, listed here, everything is here. It's an Indian company, as Indian as it gets. But 95% of the business comes from outside India.
Yes.
So when India is today, for example, in 2024, India is doing very well. It's growing at 7%, massive economy, fifth largest, becoming third. The macro narrative is the best it's ever been. Right? Jobs, everything's being created. But the rest of the world is in real trouble.
Right.
Inflation, petrol prices, elections, it's going crazy. Right?
War.
Wars,
Wars. Yes.
it's really going crazy. The IT industry for the first time is saying my home market is strong or my people are happy. They want more benefit. They want more hike. They're asking for title promotion here because the macro is doing great. But my customers are all suffering.
Yeah.
They're not giving me projects.
Right.
Right? Always the opposite was always true. US is always doing well. India is scam, yeah,
Just trying to
whatever.
catching up. Yeah.
So India, okay, India market anyway, we don't have much revenue here. As long as US is strong, we're good.
Hmm.
Right? So they're dealing with a very new inversion.
Right.
That's never been a problem for them to deal with before.
Right.
Right? Second, we're going to reach a point where the Indian currency becomes stronger.
Right.
The IT companies were always reliable compounders because they were earning in dollars,
Cost arbitrage was there.
and they were bringing it here in a cost arbitrage and so on. Now the living cost is going up. People have bigger aspirations.
Right.
No one is going to join these companies at 4 lakhs. You and I had to suffer that
Right.
abuse in placement, right?
Mhm.
With 3.2, 3.54.
Right.
Today, you give a kid 4, they say, sorry, boss, I'm going to Flipkart.
Right.
Right? We couldn't say that. But
Right.
in 10 years, it's changed. Right? So now suddenly they're running out of people to hire. They're going to tier 3, tier 4 colleges. Even there, they have YouTube, they're seeing Shark Tank, they're saying, boss, I want 5.
Yes.
Right? And they're struggling to. So there's going to be a full inflation that they
Right.
all have. There's a rack up
Right.
that happens. And suddenly all the margins have to be a little bit compressed from the bottom up.
Right.
Or they have to ask for pricing increase there, but they are struggling now.
Right.
So there's a crushing coming. This
Right.
is a big challenge.
Right.
Right? And lastly, AI. Everyone's talking about AI substituting people and so on. We don't know what the ramifications are.
Right.
Right? The first ramification is Infosys might be. So Infosys was one of the first investors in OpenAI, 2017.
Oh, nice.
They're a shareholder. They've
Okay.
seen ChatGPT from nothing to today.
Hmm.
Right? It's not a surprise. So much business is coming to them in the US saying, help us use OpenAI inside our company,
Right.
inside the bank, inside the airline, inside logistics companies, etc., etc. But after a point, do you need 350,000 people inside Infosys? Can't AI do a lot of this?
Right.
Right? They're figuring it out right now. So we think the Infosys story is done. It's in many ways dealing with new challenges. 100 billion, it should be 500 billion.
Right.
Why not? In the US, there are dozens of companies going past 500 billion.
Big tech sitting
Big
there.
tech, I mean, Tesla is worth 500 billion. Come on.
Right.
A car company of 500 billion, then an IT company has to be
Right.
have that aspiration. Right.
Right.
So I think in many ways, the story is going to become story 3.0.
Hmm.
Right? They had the founders for 1.0, 2.0. 3.0 is not the founders.
Right.
New challenge.
I
Right?
think a lot of markets like EMEA and all can be new avenues
Of
of
course,
growth.
because they
Right.
don't have local people.
Right.
They haven't trained as many engineers.
Right.
For sure, they have to get off oil and they have to build new cities, banks. They have to build everything again.
Right.
And they want to be global centers, tourism, etc.
Right. Right. Right.
They have to build new airports, new payment systems. All of that is not going to be product companies alone. It's going to be integrators,
Right.
right? IT companies. So I think there's still a lot to build. I think the whole AI wave will be built by IT companies who are helping everyone transition. The cloud is also still only halfway through. We have to move so much to the cloud.
Right.
All of Indian banks are still on private,
Hmm.
private on-prem.
Right.
They have to all move to the cloud, right? The government has to move to the cloud. There's a massive database.
Opportunity there. Right.
So a lot of things should build. I think where is the next Infosys? Also is a good question. Why am I not funding the next Infosys? Right? Infosys didn't raise any VC, didn't give us an opportunity to invest. My whole industry didn't invest in Infosys.
Right.
100 billion today. How can we let go of the next company?
Right.
That is the next Infosys, right? Different avatar. So I think we have to all think about this and say it's just getting started still. And that's a good opportunity for all of us. To be
Got
honest.
it. Are you thinking of taking 3-1 capital to global scale?
No. We think at least next 10 years, there's enough to build in India. There's enough to IPO in India.
Right.
There's enough of our companies going global. So we can start them here and they go global, right?
Right.
We don't have to fund a company in Singapore or a company in Dubai to attack the Dubai market or the Singapore market. We can take an Indian company there.
Got
It's
it.
the beauty of working from India, right?
Right.
It's very hard to take a German company into India. Very difficult.
Right.
So the German investors who want to tap into the India opportunity invest in Indian startups.
Right.
But we can take companies to Europe, right? Infosys, all of them already done it before.
Right.
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 US for sure. So many SaaS companies go there.
Right.
So I think the opportunity in India is quite interesting. And that's why we don't have to move. Our invested dollars the companies can take it there.
Got it.
Right. So that's
I-
that's at least next 10 years we are reasonably sure. We'll be
I think
here.
other VC firms are bullish on India. That is why they are having their offices
right,
here.
that's
But
right,
we
that's
are
right.
at center of
When everyone is
action.
moving here, why should we move out? That's
Got
we
it.
have to ask ourselves that.
And how your life has changed? How was it in 20s compared to 30s? Because I see a lot of wisdom in the way you are talking, the way you are explaining.
That's
Were
a
you
good
same
question.
in 20s also?
So 20s, the good things. I was allowed to have experiences that challenged me quite early. I was allowed to compete with some of the shrewdest, smartest, the sharks of the species. I didn't win all the time. I was humbled with loss, which is very important. And I think I was given the space to ask questions about the next 10 years, like I explained, and make decisions without regret. Right, come back to India, get married at a certain time, leave that job when I did, etc., etc. In my 30s, I think now I'm midway through my 30s almost. I have two kids. I think they change your entire way of thinking.
Yeah, even I have a 10-month-old.
You told me yes. So the anger that was a motivator of mine in the 20s, the anger is going away.
You
I'm
have
actually a little
to,
scared.
they
I'm
increase your patience level to
They
like,
increase my patience. I can't be angry at them. Obviously, I'll never be angry at them. They're delights, but I can't sustain that anger the way I used to.
right,
Right? I'm afraid of losing. What replaces the anger? What is the new motivator? Right? It's not greed for me. It's not ego for me. It's not more money. It's not uh, that kind of ambition. But I think now the urgency of doing it before my time comes, because now I'm closer to the time I set when I was in my 20s. I'm not moving that time period. I'm holding myself accountable. I'm now closer to it by half. And I realize I don't have much time. And I think that motivator, the urgency, is a stronger motivator than anger. And that is giving me much more discipline with how I do my time, more discipline than my 20s, which I didn't think was possible.
right.
So, interesting, again, compression and expansion. But I think next 10 years should be very different from my first 10 years.
Got it. I think I have two more questions.
Please.
I'll touch base on the VC way of life. So
Yeah.
a lot of professional I speak to, even these two sitting here.
So I think don't be a VC if you enjoy the limelight. Don't be a VC if you want to be celebrated for your success. And definitely don't be a VC if you think you can keep moving up some chain and progress forward. VC is a 10-year business minimum to make money.
Right,
Right? Now, why would you be a VC? If you have learned so much in your operating role that you've realized, like a lot of us have, we will not be a founder, but we are good at supporting a certain type of person achieve a certain type of outcome. Number two, if you know how to raise capital,
which is
right?
very difficult.
Even founders don't know how to raise capital.
Hmm.
I'll be very brutal about that. I mean, I respect founders a lot, but I see them messing up on two things: how they recruit people and treat them after they recruit them, and how they deal with capital. I think there's an immaturity on both, right? If you are mature with capital, so we have raised $500 million in 314, right?
Nice.
We're too young by the Indian standard to have
Right.
done what we've done. But the half a billion is not overawing us. It is like I said, I'm playing football. The money is the grass.
Hmm.
I'm not so enamored by how green the grass is.
Right.
I'm here to score goals,
Right.
right? That's my job. I'm looking there, not looking down. So if you treat money with like I said, the respect, right? It serves as a stepping stone process. Then you can use it as a tool.
Right.
But if you're overall in money and the glamour and a 5-star hotel then VC will eat you. It'll consume you. You'll always be a tool of someone else.
Right.
The guy who uses money as a tool will make you his tool.
Right.
And I think it leaves a lot of people very bitter and unhappy in the job.
Right.
That happens a lot, right? So I think those are some of the most subtle things about the job. A lot of other VC will tell you about the thesis and market, and okay, I'll stay out of that. That any blog will tell you. These are
Got
the hardships of the reality of the business.
got it. It brings me to my last question. How do you upskill yourself? Because you interact with so many founders, so you
True.
have to keep your knowledge updated. And the viewers of this video, what are two or three industries that they should keep a watch out if they are looking out
Good
for
question.
jobs in the next 2 3 years?
So how do we keep ourselves updated? There are two truths we realized. When a founder comes to pitch a company to you, right, and you're listening to the pitch, the founder's not an idiot. He or she is very smart. They're competent. They're betting their life on this. So you have to assume the amount of preparation they've come with when they're making that pitch, and you give them 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever, right? They don't have hours to talk to you. They are coming like it is the most definitive event in their life. These 45 minutes,
Life transforming.
right? That's how they're coming. That they're putting that pressure on themselves. Um, if you don't know enough about that market, so say someone comes and pitches some spec chem idea to me, right? If I'm not the spec chem educated guy,
Mhm.
like I don't even know what manufacturing is, what the margin profile is, who the customers are, what is spec chem. I just say, no, boss, I'm doing ride hailing, food delivery. Why are you talking to me? Um, I'm wasting his time.
Right.
Like I'm letting this guy down from the first minute, right? If I ask questions, I'm going to look like an idiot because I know for sure I don't know what he's talking about, and I'll ask some very weird questions,
Right.
and then he will look at me like, "Oh, how do you even have this job?"
Right.
Okay, it's all downhill when you're not prepared. So knowing the truth that the founders coming to with that intensity in that conversation forces you to be prepared in the markets you're investing in,
Right.
and therefore it also allows you to do an interesting test. If the founder knows more than you about this market, good, he's the right guy to start the company.
Right.
But if I know more about this market than the founder, because it could be a bad meeting also, right?
Right.
You could be a hobby founder, whatever. Then I know this guy is not the right guy to start this company. So I think that's the interesting difference in the pressure that comes and how to
Okay.
deal with it. So as VCs, we're always working under this pressure that we should know our markets as well as possible,
Right.
and therefore it forces you to limit yourself to a few markets because you
Right.
can't know everything. So to get good, we're spending a lot of time outside. We're meeting the biggest companies in the space. We're trying to get them to talk to us about their roadmaps. We're asking them for the gaps in their supply chain. We're talking to public market investors because one day, if it works, in 10 years, they have to buy a company that I bring them for IPO, right? So I have to know how they think now, and I have to be able to assess how they'll project their thinking 10 years later. So I don't have a company to sell to them today.
Right.
The company I'm building will come to them 10 years later, right?
Right.
And I hope to see some continuity in the logic. So we are paranoid about the market. And I think that makes us look at everything. We're not waiting for a McKinsey report. We're not waiting for some blog article from someone. We are going out there and finding the idea before it
Before it
becomes
comes.
mainstream,
Got
right?
it.
We are building companies before they become mainstream. And so we have to be pressured by ourselves to think before the mainstream. I think that once that pressure comes, where to find the information, how to find it, how to compress it, how to share it, how to ask the right questions to the founder, those all become much easier. That's how
Got
we're
it.
preparing. The sectors of the future, I think energy. I think one of my biggest and most recent interesting learnings was that I have to imagine a world where energy is free. Whether it's nuclear fusion, whether it's solar everywhere, whether it's more efficient substitution of fossil fuels by some other baseload technology. I think we have to work backwards from a vision of the future where electricity, energy is free. Right?
Got it.
Um, that changes so many things around us because all the assumptions on human progress today is with energy as a scarcity. Right?
Right.
It's limited. So I think material science, core energy solutions,
EV.
EV is a derivative of that, right? The
Hmm.
EV assumes electricity is everywhere, and so we don't need petrol anymore.
Right.
But before that, energy has to become more efficient,
Right. True.
right?
True.
So I think there are still some fundamental, very interesting problems to think about, and so I would spend time there if I want to be the founder that starts something transformational. Second, I think you look at the success of the first wave of VCs, tech companies, Flipkart, Paytm, PhonePe, Swiggy, Zomato, etc., etc. A lot of them are services, but all of them are services. Very few products,
Right.
right? I think to start assuming now, and like we did 10 years back when we funded Licious and so on, there are going to be more Indian substitutions in the product space in India,
Right.
right? So Mama substitutes Unilever or whatever else. Licious builds a category. Boat substitutes some other things, but they have to make more in India to
Right.
be a really Indian product. So you're going to see now everything has an Indian substitute, right? Uh, I think very few substitute companies, standalone large businesses go IPO on their own. You have to be a house of
House of
products
brands,
or a
basically.
house of brands maybe, but you can't do them by rolling up. So the roll up companies have struggled, right? Because you can't just buy everything and assume.
Ah.
So I think how to transition to a future where India builds more of its own things and more products. I think that is a layer of innovation that we have to build still. Logistics, distribution, advertising, marketing, all of it has to be built in a different way. That's a big opportunity. And third, I think maybe the most interesting sector for me is AI has come and has showed us a lot of things, right? Imagine a world where all of us have expertise around us for free. So I am
Hmm.
my own personal doctor. I am my own personal lawyer. I am my own personal, say, tutor, right? Teaching me things. My own personal negotiator. Go find me a better insurance deal for my car. Find me a better discount on the Swiggy thing I'm ordering. Everything around me and keeping me alive and efficient is now a dedicated AI agent,
Got it.
right? It's very far fetched, but people are already trying to build this. In
Jarvis for Iron Man.
yes, exactly. So with spatial computing and AI agents, suddenly the world around you, you're surrounding yourself and insulating yourself from the reality of the world.
Right.
Also, right? Everyone's becoming a cocoon. I think it's a good and a bad, but I would say for sure, everyone who's trying to be a founder, start learning how to work with AI right now. Okay, you will see some problems there that if you solve for, suddenly 5 years later, when this AI agent thing is becoming real, you are better prepared to start a company in that space.
Right.
I would say that is coming. I don't know what shape it takes because it's so uncertain. But start training yourself now to see the opportunity first. That's what we are trying to do.
Got it. Thank you so much, Pranav, for a candid conversation. I think there are very nuggets of wisdom which people will gain from this
Thank you.
conversation. And thank you so much for taking out
Thank you
time.
so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So in this video, we discussed VC as a career option and VC invest in startups. If you want to work in startups, then you need to make sure that your profile is present on Apna Jobs and it contains all the relevant keywords so that you can get your first interview call. Follow me for more such content.